Morning, everyone.
Hi, everybody. This is Josie from OPWDD. Before we get started today, I just wanted to go over a couple things. We are offering closed captioning for anyone who is interested in using it. It'll be in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You're going to open the multimedia viewer, and you're going to see closed captioning. We offer it in 2 languages today. We have English and Spanish. We've decided what languages to offer based on what people have asked for. When you registered for the meeting, we asked if you needed it in another language, and those are the only 2 that were selected this time. Also, we have American Sign Language interpreting. For that, you're going to look at the top of the screen where the thumbnails are, and you want to find the interpreter's box, and you want to pin them there. We have 2 people, and they take turns back and forth. Okay, Nick.
All right, thank you, Josie. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the June 20th, 2023 meeting of the DDAC, the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Council meeting. This is our first meeting of the year. We've had some challenges in being able to get quorum, so I'm delighted to say that we actually have quorum today, and we can conduct an official meeting. Josie, could you advance the slide? So what I'd like to do is, because I know we are doing this from 3 different locations, I think it would be helpful because we do have these little boxes and people can see. So I'd like to have members of the council from each location along with developmental disability, OPWDD staff, if they could announce themselves so that we know who is present for the meeting. There are some members of the public. We'd ask the public to hold off on any comments until the end when we have a session for public comment. So why don't we start with Albany, if I could ask folks from the council first to identify themselves.
Gary Goldstein.
Paul Johnston.
Can they speak up, please, Nick?
Yeah, it is a little difficult to hear from the other sites.
This is Paul Jocelyn.
Hi, Paul.
Randy Rios Castro.
Hi, Randy.
Jeff Fox.
Hey, Jeff.
Michael Seawriter.
Michael.
Deborah McGinnis.
I'm sorry.
Deborah McGinnis.
Hi, Deborah. Anybody else from Albany?
You got me, right? Gary Goldstein.
Yes. Hi, Gary. Okay.
Mine's
Very
a
good.
little quiet on the other side of the room. So
Thank you. All right. Joining us from Buffalo. Dan, you want to start?
Sure, Dan Brown.
Randy D. Antonio.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Ann McCaffrey. Barb DeLong.
Hi, Barb.
Stephanie Speaker, self-advocate and head of transportation.
Very good. Hi, Stephanie. All right. Joining us virtually, Shamika.
Hello, this is Shamika Andrews. Great to see everyone.
Gary. Hi.
Yes. Hi, Jerry Athena's Bennett.
Any other DDAC members joining us virtually?
Leah Steinberg.
Hi, Leah. Anyone else? Okay. And from New York City, this is Nick Capoletti.
Stuart Flown.
Stuart.
Donna Colonna.
Donna. Okay. Could I ask OPWDD staff to introduce themselves? I can't see who's in the room.
Sure, this is Eileen Haynes. I'm the general counsel, and I'm also serving as the commissioner's representative today.
Eileen.
Mary Beth Babcock from Counsel's office.
Rachel Baker, Senior Advisor to the Commissioner. Kate Marley, Deputy Commissioner for Policy and Program Development.
Allison Pigelski, Associate Commissioner for the Division of Administration.
Jim Kaufman, Deputy Director, Policy and Program Development.
Allison McCarthy, Director of the Office of Strategic Initiatives.
And Jessica Pigeon, Deputy Director of the Office of Strategic Initiatives.
Nick, I just want to let you know, Vicki Haifa, EDPC is here as well.
Hi, Vicky. All right, very good. Did I miss anybody? Then again, we'll give members of the public the opportunity to speak later in the agenda. Okay, well, again, I want to thank everybody for taking time. This is an important meeting because we do have an unusual situation in that we actually have to get a few things approved that we have forwarded to the members. The first thing is some changes to the bylaws. You've all had a chance to see those changes. We've sent them out a couple meetings, but we've not had quorum. So today we can actually approve them. The bylaw changes primarily add, if you will, the authority of the legislature to appoint members. That's primarily the biggest change that we've made to the bylaws. And then we also want to have a virtual vote, which is to approve the ability for us to actually have virtual meetings. And that's something that we have taken for granted during COVID, but we need to actually approve that in order to formalize it for future meetings. Mary Beth, did you want to say anything about either the bylaws or the virtual vote before we?
You've done a great job. It's just a change to Article 1, as you pointed out. The enabling statute for DDEC was changed as far as membership, and that's what's changed in the bylaws. And the resolution for video conferencing is to allow video conferencing. The only caveat I will say is that if you're attending by video, unless you are a disabled member, you don't count towards a quorum until a quorum is established in actual locations.
Right. Thanks, Mary Beth. And that has been one of the challenges that we have had is in getting enough people in attendance. But with the 3 sites, we've been able to accomplish that. So again, we can move forward. So I've got 3 things that I'd like to ask for approval. One is approve the minutes of the last meeting back in December. So if I could get a motion.
This is John. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thanks, John. Second.
Second.
Gary.
Thank you. All in favor? For
Aye.
approval?
Aye.
Okay. Any abstentions? I will abstain because I wasn't at the meeting. Okay, meeting pass, or the meeting minutes pass. So the first item is the bylaws. So I'd like to get a motion to approve the bylaws, the changes.
Make the motion, Barb DeLong.
Thanks, Barb. Second? Donna Kalana seconds it. Any discussion?
Yeah, Nick, it's Michael C. Ryder. I just noticed in Article 7 of it still makes a reference to the J code, and I think that's not changed to the Commission on Ethics and Lobbying in Government. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but the next time we're talking, next time we're talking about amendments, perhaps that's the way to do it. Can't do it now.
Yeah, it's a good point, Michael. These are already a little dated. Things keep moving. Okay, so we'll note that. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and again, all eyes here in New York City. I'm assuming Buffalo. Any nays?
Yep.
No, okay, great. The bylaws passed. Now let's move to the virtual vote resolution. I'd like to get a motion to approve the virtual vote.
So
Stuart,
moved.
okay, we've got a couple of them. So Stuart made the motion to approve. Dan, you want to second that?
Sure.
Okay, and could any discussion?
Yeah, Nick, it's Barb. Just one very nitty point. On the 5th paragraph, there's a typo. And it should just be changed to accept during executive session, not excerpt. Not a big deal, but it should be right?
No, you're right. All right, let's note that. Change. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Great. So the resolution for virtual voting passes. And again, let's just remember Mary Beth's comments about the fact that we will still need quorum at the sites before we can actually proceed with a full meeting. So thank you very much. We appreciate that. This has been a long time in coming, and obviously with the pandemic and with some of the changes that both the legislature made, as well as the open meetings law, it's good that we are all set for conducting future business. So with that, the rest of the agenda, let me just kind of cover the rest of the agenda, because I know we had one member who needed to take it
from Colorado.
So Dan, you can do that now.
Thank you. Nice.
We're going to receive an update from OPWDD, and then we'll have some time for discussion. One of the things that many members have asked for is to ensure that we incorporate discussion time into the agenda, which we have. Following that, we're going to be discussing committee reports. John Maltby, our vice chair, is going to lead a conversation. He's been working very closely with the committee chairs and the executive committee on kind of aligning an approach to presenting the progress that the committees are doing, and you'll see that in the PowerPoint later. And then we're going to allow for some discussion, and then we will do public comment in the last 15 minutes of the meeting. All right, why don't we start with an OPWDD update?
Thanks, Nick. This is Eileen Haynes, General Counsel. I just wanted to give a very quick update on where we are with our leadership right now. I think folks know that Carrie Neifeld, our commissioner, has been out on maternity leave, and she has welcomed a beautiful baby boy, and we expect her to come back sometime in July. In the meantime, we have an executive deputy commissioner who will be starting on Monday, and I think you folks will all know her. It's Willow Bear. Willow served as general counsel for OPWDD for many years, and then left us to go serve as general counsel at OCFS. Lately, she has been covering as assistant counsel in the governor's office, and she'll be joining us on Monday. So we're very excited about that. And we have a lot to cover. So right now, I'm just going to turn it over to Kate, who's going to talk about the HCBS access.
Okay, good morning, everybody. So I have 3 topics to cover, and I'll try to do so expeditiously. The first is a new federal rule that is out for public comment, so not yet final. I keep having to stress that to myself as I panic into the evening hours about the extent of the proposed changes. To put it in context, it's called the access rule. Really, HCBS settings rule was all about the individual and their experience with services. This is about the system that supports them. So it is hugely ambitious, deeply challenging, most of which is for states, the job of implementation, but of course that's always shared with providers. And it is a remarkably ambitious agenda. For each of the provisions, they're giving us between 3 and on the outside 7 years to implement. Most are in the like 2 to 3 year range. I'll hit on them a few of these today. But obviously it's about 400 pages of draft rules. It shrinks down to 180 in the Federal Register with its 3 columns and like 0.8 font. But it's really, really, really dense. Comments are due July 3rd. Several federal associations have asked for an extension, given the complexity of the rules, proposed rules, and that was denied. So it's due July 3rd. That's a whole lot of reading. But I would encourage anyone who cares to comment, because I think it'll be helpful for the federal government just to understand sort of the complexity of what's proposed. What I'd like to do, given that there's really no way to do justice to the amount that's being proposed, is just sort of run through a few of the sort of hot ticket items. First of all, they are requiring annual person-centered planning and an annual functional assessment. Unclear what the functional assessment means. I think and hope that that will be left to us to determine, and then that should be fine. So this is one I'm not too concerned about, unless the federal interpretation is going to go beyond what it should be, which I'm sure has never happened in the history of federal interpretation, so nowhere's there. They are requiring an establishment of a grievance system, much like they already have in managed care. Managed care was kind of built to do it. Now they want it for fee for service. And it's unclear what exactly that means. It could be fairly burdensome, or it could be, sort of our current regulatory processes could suffice. I think it's probably somewhere in between the two. So that's a whole lot of work to really understand how to set that up. But it does set standard timeframes. And this is not fair hearing. Fair hearing still remains. This is something that is not fair hearing, but would be agreements. So as incident management system, we have an electronic system. The complexity of the activities there are pretty daunting. It may very well drive provider workload associated with investigations. Again, we'll have to see, but it's a very, very big workload. The two things that I think are perhaps the most concerning, first of all, there's an HCBS payment adequacy requirement. And what that requires is that 80% of all Medicaid payments go to the direct care worker for homemaker, home health aid, and personal care service. So technically, as it is drafted at this point, it does not affect rehabilitation services at all. But CMS is asking for comment on that. And I do think that there will be tremendous pressure to include IDD services at the national level into these requirements. And I think that makes perfect sense. The problem is, I don't know how that 80% benchmark is going to work in our system, because we have many high needs people who may have lots, their reimbursement is not just direct care. It's a lot of clinical support, and how exactly that's going to measure is we will need time for it. And they're giving, I think at the outset, 4 years for that return. But that, we have a lot to learn if it is applied to our system, absolutely understanding the drive for such a requirement. The next one is reporting for timeframes from enrollment to initiation of services. Again, this is limited to those 3 services I mentioned at this time: personal care, home health aid, and homemaker services. But again, unclear, because they're asking for comment whether that will be extended. So I think those are kind of the most sort of immediate issues. There is a requirement also for transparency and rate setting. So beyond what we do today, which is to post rates on the website, we would have to actually break out the components of those rates. And also, if we were included in the scope of rules that govern payments for direct care staff, every agency's payment to direct care staff would be posted on the statewide website as well, with not a lot of time to sort of get to that point. So it's certainly something we're tracking and we're commenting on. We would encourage folks to comment. You know, it's not that we would object to any of the provisions. They're all great. The issue is how much it costs to do it and how much time we have to do it. Both of which we will be commenting on pretty extensively because, you know, these rules are potentially a real game changer for the state that we work. So that's it. If anyone is interested, July 3rd is the magic date to submit comments, and we'll be happy to share that link. And there's some very good written material, so happy to share it. It is interesting to see where the feds are going. I think to stand back and just say, okay, it's a data-driven world. It's a world where a person's rights really are at the forefront. And it's a world of accountability for providers, for the state, for everybody. So, you know, that's I think the high level takeaway. It's like, this is the future and we all need to kind of get ready for it. So that's what we're sort of most carefully tracking on the federal side. On our waiver front, I think people are aware, we wrapped up public comment last month. Seems last night. Thank you all very much. It was remarkably well received. I'd say this is on balance our most positively responded to amendment. We are moving forward with that process and trying very hard to get that to CMS ASAP. We do hear shockingly that CMS has acknowledged that, gee, with the end of the PHE in 50 states and a whole lot of appendix case, they may be buried in amendments and have to review them all. So we want to be at the top of that list and we'll be working hard to get that done. We really won't hear anything until September, October. Probably September 30th will be the magic date. So we'll be sure and provide any updates that we can. So the last thing I just wanted to touch on is the end of the PHE, the public health emergency. I think everyone by now is aware of it. And if they aren't, they've been sleeping under a wonderful rock and I'm going to find that rock, but it's in the directions. But May 11th, the PHE ended, and that meant any rules associated with state plans. So for example, ICF state treatment ended on that day. We have another 6 months till November 11th for waiver services. And that was sort of the drive to get this amendment in so that we could make sure we have a smooth transition for a number of key elements that we had under the appendix A. The big issue that we are working very hard on with CCOs, with providers, and further outreach is really just the shift in the in-residence day provision that we had during COVID. So when day have shut down, a lot of folks who live in certified residences and go to a day have program, they couldn't go. So they started getting resident services in the residence. That is now unwinding as of November 11th. So ROs and everybody else are working as collaboratively as can be to make sure we understand who's getting services where. Is it in the home? Is it outside in the community? And what do they want to do? And how can we make that transition happen, given all the challenges that we still have with HCBS settings and staffing, et cetera. So work is definitely underway. We have a series of milestones that we're working through. I think the good news is early reports are more folks are actually not getting services in the residence. They've returned to their community settings than we anticipated, but that's still very much on work. The focus of obviously the next, the intensive focus until November. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Kate. So this is Rachel Baker, for those not remember. We're going to do just a quick update on upcoming community engagement opportunities, and then an update on where we have some of the HERPA initiatives. And I'm going to kick off with the diversity, equity, and inclusion work that the agency's been taking on. Our chief diversity officer couldn't make it today, and she was pretty disappointed. She had an exciting presentation to give. So I'm just going to be really high level. So earlier this month, we held a number of community forums with Georgetown just to kick off the diversity, equity, and inclusion work. They're going to be compiling everything that they learned from that experience and launching some additional engagement in the fall. So when we have, I think, early fall. So when we have those dates, we'll be sure to share them widely so folks are aware. I think the only other thing I'd say on that is to thank everyone for participation that participated. We heard really positive feedback on a lot of those on those different forums. So thank you. I'm going to ask Jim to do a quick update.
Morning, everyone. Once again, Jim Kaufman, Policy and Program Development, Deputy Director. So I think as most of you know, we've been engaged with Guidehouse since November of 2022. And over the next few months, we'll be sort of transitioning into the stakeholder engagement phase of that work. We're looking to sort of embark on that in a few different ways, but with the overall aim of reaching as broad and diverse a segment of our stakeholder community as possible. So we anticipate engaging in some town hall opportunities where we'll gear those forums to individuals and families with lived experience. Also, our provider network. The hope there is that we develop an educational and outreach effort, that informs, our community as to managed care as an opportunity for this system, both, the potential, benefits that could come along, with the service design opportunity, such as managed care or other alternative system design changes, but also some of the known challenges that come along with that as well. We want our community to be as well informed as possible so that we can, create a balanced conversation and hear back, from individuals, families, providers, et cetera, with their feelings and perspective on where the system is now, where it could go, and possible options for doing so. And in doing that, I think the other opportunity that, we're hoping to establish to, again, assess the perspective of our community is a survey opportunity. And I think in terms of ordering, we're hoping to sort of initiate the town hall opportunities first so that there's an educational component, sort of a more well-informed base of understanding, that will, I think, improve the information we're able to receive through a survey effort as well. And so hoping with some more definitive dates for that to occur over the next few months.
Allison and Jessica.
Sure. So in addition to all that other fantastic work that we're, hoping that you guys will continue to engage in, we also have our annual 507 or strategic plan forums that will be coming up. We're looking at late July, early August. So we're excited to be back on the road. We'll be going to a few different locations and then from similar locations as we did last year. So we'll be releasing those shortly. In addition to that, we'll also be pushing out a survey as well to get feedback for those who may or may not be able to join the forums in person. And there will be virtual opportunities as well.
Jessica. I know it's a lot of different engagements and we are cognizant of that. We're going to work hard to try to make sure none of it is overwhelming, that things are scheduled in a way that makes sense, so that we're not scheduling two of them at the same time, right? Or even the same day, or maybe potentially even the same week, just because folks need space to breathe and do their jobs. Now I'm going to ask Allison Pingelski to give us an update on the excellent work that they've been doing on workforce.
Thanks, Rachel. Good morning, everyone. So I wanted to just give you a quick highlight of where we are with some of the ARPA projects. The first one is the NADSP credentialing project. The goal was to get nearly or just over 2,400 direct support professionals and frontline supervisors certified under that initiative. And I'm happy to report that we have 1,125 participants starting the certification to date. And we have quite a few individuals who have been able to complete the training and achieve their certification. For the DSP 1, we had 188. For DSP 2, we've already achieved 71. For DSP 3, 34, and for the frontline supervisor certification, there's been 28. So that's terrific progress compared to where we were in March, where we were just getting started. Ryan Cox is our new Director of Workforce Development and Talent Acquisition. He and I have been traveling to all of the participants to celebrate the direct support professional certification. We are also interviewing them to create a video for a couple of upcoming presentations, as well as to share with other direct support professionals to have them understand what the certification is about and why it's important from another direct support professional perspective to participate. So we're excited to compile that video. It is quite an aggressive schedule. We hope to get to everyone before the end of June. And we're going to all corners of the state. So we hope to achieve that, but if we need to hit some of the sites in July, we'll adjust the schedule accordingly. So far, we've also had several organizations participate in interviews as well, telling from their perspective how this participating in the certification program has helped their organization. Some of the lessons that they've learned, as well as some of the best practices for OPW to take back and to see if we can do something to address those concerns. There's still plenty of time to participate in NADSP. However, there are no more open slots for organizations to participate, but NADSP is still offering the eBadge program licenses at a reasonable cost, and they're happy to work with your organization if you're interested in seeing what that would look like. For the New York Alliance, the technical assistance contract, we had a very high response rate from the direct support professionals. So the first round was the organizational self-assessment, which many of you participated in. There were more than 130 organizations who provided a complete response. Those responses are being compiled now by Nick Silver, the Alliance partner. And we expect to get you some draft reports before the end of the summer for your review and feedback starting in early fall. We had over 4,100 direct support professionals participate in their portion of the survey, which was astounding. We extended by 1 week, and that really jumped the numbers. So for everyone who participated in sharing that with your direct support professionals, we really appreciate the fact that we got such a large response. Again, we're taking the combination of those two surveys, and we are working with the Alliance to determine how to put materials out that are best practices from what you've responded in the surveys. It's tools to support your recruitment and retention efforts, and there'll also be some training and additional information that will be shared as part of that contract. So we're looking for much of that to start with a calendar for about the fall. The SUNY project in partnership, we have been able to secure contracts with 10 different SUNY campuses from across the state. Most importantly, Empire College, who has 15 or more locations. So they're pretty much in every part of the state that you can imagine. The state university has created what they call the DSP micro-credential. The beauty of that program is that it leads to a higher education pathway. So for your direct support or frontline supervisors that participate in the SUNY micro-credential, they're earning college credits towards a college, either associate's or bachelor's program, depending on which campus they choose. So I think that that's a really exciting opportunity. We've also found that through that partnership, the college will meet with the student and they will look at what work they've accomplished, what training they've attended, and their overall career journey to offer them additional college credits. So some of the individuals that are working with SUNY are actually getting level 300 and 400 credit for courses as part of a degree program based on the work that they're doing in direct support care. So I think that that's a really exciting opportunity for us. SUNY's excited. We will be posting the schedule by midsummer because the courses start off the traditional semester. They don't have to run a semester and they're not all full semester courses. So we'll be sharing that out with you as soon as we have the final schedule from all 10 schools. If we get some of them sooner and it looks like it would be beneficial to share earlier, we'll push that out as soon as we think we have enough information. We are still working with BOCES because we need to work with the Department of Health and the State Education Department because there's concern that the direct support professional curriculum is akin to some of the other health sciences program like the CNA, PCA, and HHA. And so the concern is that they want to make sure that the students understand that there is a distinct set of responsibilities depending on which path they choose. And so they want us to make sure that the curriculum is clear for both the student and for the that the students will do their work-based learning. So we are working with BOCES. There are some BOCES that are partnering with SUNY and they will do what's called an affiliation agreement. And that will allow BOCES to teach college and classroom, and they will offer the DFT micro-credential in the BOCES program. So they would get the micro-credential that SUNY would offer as a high school student. So I think that that's a really exciting opportunity for those schools to partner together to offer that in your areas. And that.
Can I comment? Question?
No, we have like 5 more minutes.
Okay.
So 2 quick updates related to ARPA on the CCO evaluation. We awarded award to the vendor. That vendor is currently reviewing the contract. As soon as we have that contract back and signed, we'll be making an announcement in terms of that awardee. On the self-direction front, we recently responded to bidders to their questions and posted that response to the website. And we have applications due on June 29th. So we look forward to that continuing. On both fronts, CCO and self-direction, there will be significant opportunities for stakeholder engagement. So more to come on that, but similarly to the managed care, we'll be having opportunities for engagement and discussion because we obviously want to hear from folks and have that opportunity to engage. For self-direction, stakeholders as well as the CCO stakeholders get that input. And then for our DDAC engagement and executive committee, we've been engaged in opportunities for how do we work more collaboratively and build that relationship. So we've been in discussion and I'm happy to report that OPWDD is working with each committee member to identify program staff, policy staff, as well as staff from the Office of Strategic Initiatives to really build and engage in that conversation and have an ongoing presence so we can prioritize together, make sure the communication is open and clear, and really try to build that capacity as we prioritize and engage in our strategic initiatives and planning.
So I think at this point we got time for discussion on the OPWDD update and here in Albany.
Excellent presentation, I thought. And the last comment about engaging the committee here is a good one. I was going to just mention that in the direct care training, they always bring up the oral health component and the caregiver training. I hope that it's in there. I hope it's solid. There are a number of different programs that our dental task forces have worked on over the years for caregiver training that's available for use for free, as well as many members of the group that have been interested in participating in those trainings and helping. So if you wish to leverage it, just let us know. And you'll notice one of our slides that when we talk about health and wellness will be on continuation of a caregiver training initiative that we were starting just before COVID, which fell apart during COVID. But it's something we'd love to bring back, and it's been a tremendous interest to many of the, particularly the dentists and other medical professionals. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nick, are we allowed to ask some questions from Buffalo?
Absolutely, Barb. I think, Eileen, are we pretty much, are we done with the formal presentation? Can we open it up to discussion?
Yep, that's fine, Nick.
Great. I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. So yes, Barb.
Okay, I have two questions and one comment. I'll make it quick. The comments, actually, two comments and one question. So the engagement, stakeholder engagement that we've heard now 5 different opportunities for different topics, I think is terrific. I concur with whoever it was from OPWDD that said, you know, we don't want to make it confusing. So my suggestion would be a communication plan associated with very clear and concise opportunities for what topic and when, both on the website, and push it out to your email distribution. But I personally, even though I'm always engaged, I'm still confused about the Georgetown stakeholder opportunity for engagement, because we didn't hear anything about it or I missed it. So I just don't want our family members and self-advocates to miss the opportunities when there's so much stakeholder input that's needed to make good decisions. So I just want to emphasize that we need to be clear about it. And if the council members aren't completely clear, then perhaps our family members and self-advocates won't be clear. So maybe there could be some action associated with that communication, that it be reviewed by a few council people so that it's understandable. That's one comment. The other comment is attached to Gary's comment about health and dental needs associated with direct professionals, care professionals. I can't emphasize the critical nature of that as we go forward, as our population becomes more and more complex, and healthcare is dire right now. So anything that is not already incorporated in the curriculum absolutely needs to be detailed. It's something as simple as oral care, right? Or G-tooth care. It's got to be in there. It's not just about adult daily living skills. And the question I have is the certification process that love to hear all about the stuff that's going on with SUNY and BOCES. That's very exciting to me. The certification process that you had your 1,125 people go through the certification, are the voluntary providers getting additional reimbursement so that those people that are certified are getting an increased wage? And the second question would be, why would we have no more opportunities in that certification process? So I know I talked fast, sorry about that, but I wanted to be quick.
Do you want to talk
Go
about?
ahead, you can answer the questions now.
It's Rachel from OPWDD. Thank you for your comments on the public engagement side. I agree completely on needing to make sure that we have a clear communications plan, because we don't, exactly what you just said, we don't want folks to miss opportunities because it's unclear. And then.
So Barb, this is Allison. I just wanted to clarify. So the opportunities are for those organizations participating in the grant. And so at this point, all of the grant funds have been committed under contracts through NADS's RFQ process. As far as for reimbursements, part of the RFQ was to offer reimbursements to the organizations that are allowing their direct support professionals to participate in training. So there is funding going back to the organizations for that part, as well as the individual direct support professional is receiving bonuses for each level of the certification that they complete. As part of our roadshow, we're hearing from the direct support professionals is the bonus is less important to them than if they were to receive a standard increase in their pay. And so we did take that note. We've heard that from several different direct support professionals and organizations that that's more meaningful. So we don't necessarily have a solution for that now, but we have heard that in our conversations and interviews.
I would agree, but I would agree with their opinion.
Noted.
And thank you for the clarification on the grant.
You bet.
Nick, can I ask a question, just to follow up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. This is Randy D'Antonio. So as far as a couple of things, you talked about the end of the PHE and reopening and getting people back into day programs. Do you have specific data of how many programs, state op and voluntary side, have actually reopened versus those that are continued to remain closed? The reason I'm asking, because you mentioned that there's good news, many have returned, but what we're seeing and hearing from some of our HAB specs in the field is they're still working primarily out of the homes because of how short-staffed it is. And so in many DDSOs, their programs have not opened. And maybe that's, an ongoing thing that is fluid. So I'm just wondering if you have actual data about that. And the other thing is, are you doing the certifications on the state operated side for the DSPs? Or is that specifically to the voluntary sector?
Did we lose connectivity with Albany? Let me see.
Yeah, either that or Albany's on mute, but I don't,
It said, yeah, I don't see him anymore.
no, I don't either. Let's wait a minute. Hopefully
Unless-
it'll-
We probably ticked him off here.
Yeah, between you and I don't think that's unusual.
Do you have a question? Did you have a question?
No.
Oh. At some point, Nick will.
Oh, while we're waiting, I went to the Georgetown webinar. I know Barb was talking about that. And they suggested, or they said, if you had any questions, they gave you an email. Well, I emailed my questions and I never got a response from them. So I really don't know, what's what with the webinar, and it was all pretty much statistics in what they produce, statistics.
Jerry, I would suggest, you can make that comment to folks. I think we're back online with Albany. Is that correct?
Yes. We're back.
Okay, so we had a few questions that were being asked. I don't know if you had a chance to hear them.
I think we heard the first one. The one related to the PHE ending and the return to non-residence-based services.
Right, and then the second question was regarding state-operated staff participating in the certification process. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, well, this is Kate Marley. Let me take a stab at the first question. So yeah, we have actually, and I'm not thrilled to say this, remarkably little information. You have to sort of wind back to during COVID when we had emergency closures with literally a day or two notice, and we needed to make sure staff were in the right place. Unfortunately, our IT systems really don't collect that kind of information very, very flexibly. So we have done data scans on our part that would say we had 18,000 people writ large who may be getting in resident services. That only by virtue of they live in a certified residence and they're getting day services recently from the same provider. By no means does that get you to where are they getting services. So work is underway now to sort of figure out that exact issue, which is where are they getting services. So the initial work is with the care managers who are starting that survey process so that we can make sure everybody has a chance to sort of have that conversation. The good news is there are at least pockets where people are back or appear to be back, but we do not necessarily know on a site-by-site basis
what percentage staffing are available, for example, to serve folks. And that's some of the work that's really underway, both with providers, with provider associations, which will be surveying their members, and then also obviously with care managers and with individuals served.
So Kate, let me just make sure I understand. You can't give a specific number of how many day programs have actually been reopened versus how many are still receiving in-residence services at this point.
Yes, that's correct. I can't, we're working on it. But you got it. And your next question was about state participation. That would be?
Yeah, are the DSPs on the state side going through any certification process? Because while we don't represent them, we have a lot of our members working in the homes and volunteering to help because they're still getting mandated to doubles, triples, and in some cases, unfortunately, sleeping there for days on end.
Hi, this is Allison. Yes, state operations are going to be able to participate in the certification. The certification is two components. For each level of direct support, there is a 50-hour requirement for training. At this point, OPW is working with NADSP to have our training, our new employee orientation and our recertification training certified or accredited by NADSP, which would allow the state ops folks who go through that required training to earn their training hours in that fashion. Second, we will be working with state ops to find individuals that are interested and make sure that they get access to the eBadge Academy, which is where they would describe their work-based experience. They earn badges, and that's the second part of the certification requirement. So there is work right now ongoing with NADSP to make sure that we get licenses for the state ops DSPs that are interested in participating, as well as the training gets accredited.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Allison. We have a question in New York City. Stuart?
Hi, I think that the workforce policy and support for the DSPs is so incredibly necessary. But I'm also wondering whether or not there's any consideration as to how certification or any kind of support can be available for those who are self-directed, because we also have a shortage of workers as well.
So self-directed people can participate in the SUNY program, so they can enroll right now under the grant at no cost and participate in the DSP micro-credential program at SUNY. With Empire State participating, they're offering both in-class and virtual training, so that might be an opportunity for more folks to be participating in the self-directed group.
Thank you.
Yep. I had Jerry, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Where is the monetary incentive? Who's paying for the, for someone to take these classes and then they get their certification? And then what does that do to their salary? Where is that monetary component and where does it come from? Do the agencies have to find the money to pay extra to these people or what?
So Jerry, we've just started doing our interviews, but in some of the early interviews that we've already completed, the organizations, the voluntary providers are making funds available to the DSPs that are participating in completing their certification. So they actually several different.
That might be arduous on some of the smaller agencies to be able to come up with funding to have people, take these credentials. We need the employees, but then we have to be able to subsidize some of these agencies to pay for that. My second question was, I was on the Georgetown webinar and it was, had a lot of statistics. It was taken off the, the New York State, it was all New York State numbers about how many people spoke Chinese, how many people, as opposed to people with DD and people in the general population from the census. It was all from the New York State census. But they requested that anybody send an email with your question. So I did send the email, but I never got any response with my question. So I don't know if anybody else was on that and sent an email, and did they get their response? That's just my two questions.
So Jerry, with regard to the monetary support, we are working with the University of Minnesota, who is collecting information about the ARPA projects, both the baseline for where organizations and direct support professionals were before we started these programs, as well as what's happening after. So I don't know that we have a solution to tell you about today, but that's part of the evaluation of the effectiveness and the sustainability of the program. So we definitely have that on our radar to track and try to address, but I don't have an answer for you as of today.
And related to the Georgetown project, so they're pulling together questions from all of the different sessions and that people are submitting, and they're gonna pull it all together in one and create an FAQ document and then share that back out. So you should be hearing, and then you can also see everybody else's questions and responses from everybody all in one go. And that I think will be posted on the website that they spoke about on the sessions.
Thanks, Jessica. I see Dan Brown has his hand up, and since he's driving, we want to make sure he doesn't go off the road. Dan?
Nick, if you can't hear me, just don't cut me off, because I am on the road. Thank you for giving me a chance. Does it sound okay?
Yes.
So if I understand the OPWDD presentation properly, there's going to be some stakeholder sessions on the whole question of managed care. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I think it's awesome. I do believe this managed care decision is one of the momentous ones that we're going to be making. There's so much scariness with managed care. There's so much that people don't actually know. I wonder if we have to try to somehow define what managed care might look like in order for people to be able to provide good feedback, other than it sounds scary and I don't want to change.
So I think that's a great point. And as I was saying earlier, one of the things that we have worked on extensively with Guidehouse is framing their presentation so that it leads with an educational component, so that the tenets of managed care and other service design options are explained and therefore hopefully better understood by our stakeholder community, so that when it comes time to speak with our stakeholder community around the topic of managed care, there's a better base of understanding of both the pros and the cons, because it's important to understand both. And so that the conversation can be, more balanced, not just for purposes of the stakeholder community, but for us as well. We want, balanced and, well-informed feedback coming back to Guidehouse and us as an agency as well. So that's an excellent point and something we're very focused on.
Thanks, Jim. We have a question here. We have a question here in New York City. Donna?
Yeah, just related to managed care, the McCart panel presented some data related to people with developmental disabilities that are currently in managed care for health. And the number's been increasing. It's something like 30,000 individuals. So I don't know how that, they don't know why. The question was asked related to that trend and what's behind that. It's not clear whether it's because family members are part of the health of those particular Medicaid plans, or whether there's some of the dynamic going on. So I'm wondering, just as it relates to what OPWDD might be interested to look at some of that data, because 30,000 people in the OPWDD system are currently enrolled in health managed care.
Yes, and a good point. And we've noted, and I believe it's noted in the initial report that Guidehouse furnished back in December, January, that there's, I think it's roughly 37,000 with IDD who are in mainstream managed care receiving physical health benefits. It's an important data point, and one that Guidehouse is aware of and certainly incorporating into their research and evaluation work.
Great.
Try to raise
I'm going to take.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
thank you.
we'll take one more question. Is there another question?
There's a question from Buffalo. There's also Stephanie Speaker.
Jay Buffalo.
Okay, I got a question for you. What we need here in Buffalo is funding for recreation programs because they're cutting the funding and the recreation programs are shutting down because they don't have the funding. And we need better transportation also here.
So Nick, you have a question in Albany?
Okay, we'll take one more question and then I want to move to the next topic because we've got a lot on the agenda.
We have a question here in Albany from Michael.
Thank you, appreciate it. Hi, it's Michael Seawater. Two comments more than anything else. On the DSP initiatives, kudos to OPWDD on this. These are the kinds of investments that need to be made in a system like ours if we're going to see real change. And I just want to make sure that everybody's aware, though, we're not going to make real dents on any of the issues related to workforce recruitment, retention, turnover, vacancy, et cetera, until we see wages that are commensurate with the responsibilities for the work here. These initiatives, the BOCES pipeline, SUNY CUNY, recruitment, retention, DSP, technical assistance, and all that stuff are really good, but they will make very little dent without, they won't make any noticeable change, quite frankly, in my opinion, in the system until we see something that causes applicants for these jobs to click the apply button and actually go through that process. My second comment, actually, I wanted to just throw it in for Jerry real quickly. The University of Minnesota credential study from 8 years ago or 9 years ago got very extensively into the need for compensation, as Jerry was talking about, for direct support professionals and sustained.
Totally.
Not bonus dollars, but sustained salary increases that reflect the change of responsibility that's being had there. My second comment, I would just like to underscore Kate's points around the access rule, underscore it, highlight it, bold it, and all that. This is gigantic. This has the potential to be transformative for our system in very positive ways, and it has the potential to do incredible amounts of damage. Anchor at the national level is surveying provider organizations and has some preliminary results from that survey specifically around the 80% rule, with alarming numbers of provider organizations saying that they will need to cut services, and an even larger amount of alarm for those number of provider organizations who say they will not be in business, they will close shop, they will be unable to operate in that environment with the 80% rule. I strongly encourage people to take a look at that and get involved in this process, because I think CMS needs to hear it loud and clear from all stakeholders about what the potential upsides and the downsides are for the rule that they propose together in the package.
Thanks, Michael. We do have Kate, one of the members, Leah, asked if we could send the link out in the Federal Register to actually see the access rule.
Absolutely. We'll be
So
happy.
if we could do that.
Yes, Nick, we'll be absolutely happy to send out the link. And there's also, I think, a couple links I want to provide just for background that I found more helpful than maybe some others. So we'll be happy to send that out to everybody.
Great.
And
Thank you.
I just want to thank Michael for his comments and say, like he said.
Very good. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to now move on to committee reports. And before I turn it over to John to kind of lead that discussion, as Allison and Jessica alluded to, we've had some very good discussions. We did have an informal meeting of members a couple months ago where we talked a little bit about how we better align our committee work with the 507 plan and ensure that we are providing good engagement and input on how the 507, some of the key topics of the 507. And so we've done some, I think, very good work that you will hear about. I appreciate all the time and energy that the committee chairs have made in working on this. We did survey members, and I'll put one final call out for anybody who would be interested in participating in the Children's Committee. We want to get one final last count to see how many people would actually volunteer for that committee so that we can decide whether or not it becomes a standalone committee of the council or more of a liaison role. So as soon as we hear, hopefully, if you could, let me know by the end of the month, and then I'll share that with the executive committee, and we'll make an announcement. All right, John?
Thanks, Nick. So we're going to go into the portion of the meeting about committee reports.
We can't hear in Buffalo,
Is that any better?
not too much.
How's that?
Much
Oh,
better.
perfect, thank you.
Thanks. I like perfect. So we originally allowed about an hour and 15 minutes for this. We've gone a little bit over time, so while I urge the committee chairs they do have 15 minutes technically, but if they have a really short, then we can get everybody in. I'm going to start with the residential committee. Paul Johnson. Paul.
Thank you, John. Can everybody hear me okay?
Now we can.
Thank you. So this is a list of our residential committee. It is a very active committee that has done a lot of great work over the past. This is the first meeting of which I have been chair of this committee, but it is, again, a very active group that has done work together as a committee as well as through 2 subcommittees, which I'll get into in a minute. Those of you, if you could move on to the next slide. So the committee does have one recommendation for the DDAC to consider and vote on, I believe, at the end of this report. And that is to recommend to OPWDD that they convene a group of stakeholders to develop a housing policy for the next decade. So a few reasons for this. So one, again, this committee has done some terrific work and made many recommendations to OPWDD, many of which have been implemented. But we feel that the time is right now for a more comprehensive policy for a few reasons. One is that we just have some wonderful support and partnership with OPWDD at the moment, especially since Commissioner Neifeld has taken her role. We've had OPWDD representatives in every one of our meetings that have provided input all along the way. And also, we're coming out of COVID, obviously, and that has impacted the system in a number of ways, including residential services. So we feel the combination of those 2 things make the timing right for a chance to step back and develop a more comprehensive policy. More to come on that at the end of the report. We've met twice in the second quarter, in April on the 4th and in May on the 8th. And there has been a lot of work done separately in subcommittees. 3 of the things that we've talked about the most in our full committee meetings. One is gathering feedback from family members with regard to opportunities to improve the residential programs. This is going to be a priority for us going into the 3rd quarter. We are in the process of developing a new subcommittee led by Karen Azarian, who will be gathering feedback from family members and other stakeholders to provide OPWDD with their thoughts on how to improve the residential program. We've also been talking quite a bit about the FOFLs initiative as that has progressed, so that's been a frequent topic of discussion in our meetings. And the area that we've made the most progress in, especially during the 2nd quarter, has been to provide feedback to OPWDD on the housing subsidy ADM. We took the 1-year anniversary of that ADM as an opportunity to pull together a subcommittee led by Seth Greenman, which comprised a total of 8 people, including 3 people from OPWDD, to really take a deep dive into that ADM based on what we've learned over the last year and provide some suggestions on how that could be improved. And as the slide says, that those suggestions are, I think, about 14 different points, were developed collaboratively with OPWDD and shared throughout the process with them. So again, a lot of work done during the 2nd quarter by that subcommittee. We do have a couple concerns, actually just one, I should say. The first mentioned there has been resolved thanks to Jessica Pigeon. We've gotten some clarity on how heightened scrutiny will look, and with the promise of more feedback on that to come. And so really the last concern ties back to the recommendation in that we're at a moment where things could go in two different directions with regard to residential supports. We could go in a very positive direction if we have a comprehensive path forward, or we think there's a risk of going back into more institutional settings where there is less integration in the community with those who live in those settings. And I've listed there as one piece of legislation that has some uncertainty behind it as to which direction that could go. So with that, I will bring the conversation back to the recommendation of the committee, which again is to convene or to ask OPWDD to convene a group of stakeholders to develop a housing policy for the next decade. And just to clarify on what that group of stakeholders look like, it obviously would include people who receive services, family members, provider associations, but the goal would also do, and of course, that's OPWDD, but we also are interested in including other stakeholders who may not have been part of those conversations in the past. County planners, developers, landlords, bankers, tax experts, land banks, others who have a lot of experience in developing residential opportunities that could help us develop that plan.
Thank you, Gary. Sorry, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Paul. And we did have this recommendation. We had a note to vote on it at the end of the presentations. But with respect to Paul has to attend a board meeting, and so I thought it would be in order to keep a quorum and in order that he be here, that we could take make a motion on this and the council make the determination. But first, if we make a motion and then have any questions, so we'll make a motion, Paul.
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second the motion.
I'd like to, I don't know if there's an opportunity for debate or to just make a comment.
We have a discussion now. So we have a motion, we have a second. If you have a question or a comment, please let us know. I can't see who you are.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm Madam Buffalo. It's Randy D'Antonio. I'd just like to expand the group of stakeholders to include employees and or their representatives.
For sure. Are there any other questions or comments from council members?
This is Jerry, and I'm with Karen Azarian on the certified residential planning in the committee. And we've done a number of research, and we sent an email out regarding different things that need to be addressed with those people who have been living in residences and how have kind of, the support and services to the residential population has now become somewhat difficult with self-direction taking such a large role. We do have all these individuals living in residences with now partial staffing and a person-centered life not affecting them, that they just live in the residence and whatever they can get, whatever services, whatever day they can have, their person-centered doesn't really affect them. So we've been doing some research and we sent in some information to the residential committee, but that's it. Thank you. From Karen and I.
Thank you, Gary.
So the motion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Or
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We have a recommendation to the commissioner from the council. Thank you. Thanks very much, Paul. And move on to Gary.
Okay, great.
Health and wellness.
You see a number of people listed that have been members of our committee or asked to join. We're going to have to update this a bit because it's easy to get on, but it's hard to get off. So if you know you're wishing to participate, please let me know. We'll be connecting, reorganizing that to see who wishes to remain active going into next year. There's a lot of activity and meetings that do take place behind the scenes, although our full group has not met that much. We had one meeting. But activities have taken place regarding dental medical and behavioral health. Regarding dental, there are some recommendations that are being worked on and are under consideration. Nothing we're going to bring up for a vote today. But one recommendation has to do with
Excuse me 1 second, Gary. Josie, can you advance the slide by one?
OPWD assistance in development of OR waiting time tracking effort and advocacy of targeting funds from DOH to improve access in certain communities as needed. Right now, we are very thankful to the commissioner and everybody that went to bat to provide additional funding in the Medicaid system for operating room services. But we have yet to determine what that impact will be. And in discussions with DOH, they agree. And we need to be able to track where in New York services are problematic and where they are not. We have a sketch working with DOH and with others to how we think we can approach this, but we would like to work directly with OPD on this, okay, as a next step. And I think hearing the discussions, I think that you would all agree. Our next effort, and the other one I mentioned earlier, is to reinvigorate the oral health care training programs. And I mentioned that earlier. So we would love to see that also incorporated into training. We were about to launch a pretty massive effort on that just prior to COVID. Just
geographic increase for dentists. We keep.
Next discussion areas. And some of the things that have been good.
16, close.
Buffalo.
There you go, Josie.
Buffalo, we're getting some feedback.
Okay, Buffalo, if you can mute yourselves until Gary's finished, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions. Thank you.
Yeah, we too have been very, very satisfied with working with OPWDD, and specifically Phil Pettinger over the years. And we've been very, we've had advocacy for fellowships to address workforce concerns. Those have also been put in budget and are starting to become active. Successful efforts to improve the OR funding fee we talked about. But the crisis in OR access to care statewide in certain areas is very, very real. Even in the Albany area here, we're about to lose the St. Peter's program, which was a dental residency where they performed OR services. That means in the Albany area, people now have to travel downstate or to other areas for OR services. And we could use some help reaching to the hospital CEOs and decision makers about improving OR access in areas and other areas of the state as they pop up. The dental workforce issues, especially in rural areas, it's known that there's a big issue with that. And improving clinical exposure and training in the treatment of individuals with IDD is something that has been ongoing. Kudos to specifically to Truro Dental School, which has been sponsoring online continuing education courses on a regular basis now in conjunction with the Dental Task Force. And it's been a very good effort.
Next slide, please, Josie.
Next slide. As far as the Health and Wellness Committee, you've got a group of docs on that committee that are extremely devoted and looking for items to focus on. And one of the areas that they focused in on is on choking prevention, what to do, what kind of interventions can take place. So something that they've been working on. Other recommendations under consideration, improve data sharing with DOH and other data sources. We heard some discussions here about data sharing. EDROs and voluntary providers statewide to work with regional health information organizations, RIOs, for improved bi-directional sharing of health information. And work with mental hygiene legal services to provide weekend and holiday coverage for decision-making on life-sustaining treatments. Apparently, when that need arises and it occurs on a Friday, it's not always easy to find somebody to aid in the final decision-making, and it causes a lot of family stress. It's an item that was brought up, and some of our members have worked with local groups on this throughout the state. and they've hit some obstacles. So perhaps it's something that we could revisit. That I jumped to the key discussion area earlier with dysphagia. The other area is partnering with interested organizations to increase the number and quality of continuing education offerings for providers, both within and external to the IDD system. Just for those of you that are newer, a number of years ago, there was a local group of docs here that provided trainings on an ongoing basis via the internet to nurses at OPWDD and anyone interested. And perhaps another program like that could be instituted. I know that the nurses enjoy hearing from ophthalmologists and neurologists and all kinds of specialists that volunteer to give a talk on specifically on the issues of treating patients. I think that's something this group would consider reinvigorating. And finally, lack of coordination between DD and other systems impeding treatment and hospital discharge planning for individuals with complex behavioral and other medical needs. The complex behavioral individual that winds up in the hospital, and also people don't know how to deal with them from the mental health point of view, and it becomes a bit of a problem. There have been some challenging cases that have spotlighted this issue, and it's something that needs further review, discussion, and planning. Our complex behavioral group is working on organizing itself and how they're going to establish a go forward. So we don't have anything specifically from them at this point, other than the recommendation to come up with an organizational structure they feel they can work with. So that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Gary. Any questions from Buffalo? Any questions from New York City?
Oh, Buffalo had.
Yes, well, I got
Stephanie has
one
a
question. I was in the emergency room last Monday. They have to stop overbooking themselves because when I got there at 4 o'clock, and they said that they had no rooms available. I never got out of there until 6 o'clock in the morning.
You're pointing to an issue that can vary throughout the state, and I think everybody unfortunately experiences that kind of issue with emergency rooms. My wife recently broke her arm. We spent the whole day there, and I get it. And it's something that needs improvement statewide.
Yeah, in addition to what Stephanie shared from a personal standpoint, I think that our emergency rooms, and Gary, you've heard me go blah, blah, on and on about this. Our emergency rooms are not equipped from a training standpoint or knowledge of how to handle people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. All over the spectrum, from somebody like Stephanie, who's very independent, to somebody that may have autism and doesn't understand the meaning of wait, and they make them wait for 10 hours and it doesn't work. So that's really something that we need to work on with OPWDD and the Department of Health in terms of an education and knowledge transfer on how people in our population should be fairly treated. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is not just about race or sex. It's about people with disabilities as well.
I'll give you an example. There was a lady that came in after me. She was very sick. They should have taken her because she was bringing up blood. I seen the priest when I got into my room, and he went and gave somebody the last rites. Because that lady was very bad. She should have never been waiting in the waiting room that long when she was bringing up blood.
Buffalo's done now.
Okay, New York City, any questions or comments?
I just want to totally agree with you both, and the issue of people understanding what a reasonable waiting time is. It's one, you're right, it's very important, and needs of people with disabilities, a waiting time can seem forever at times, and it's needs to be looked at as people come in. And thank you.
No comments in New York, John.
Thanks, Nick. Anybody in the Albany?
I just have one comment. The DEPC, which some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with, we're a small state agency, and we fund various pilots to address different barriers in the DD system. So we are funding a pilot program right now with the University of Rochester to train emergency room ER nurses around, addressing the needs of patients with complex needs better. It just started. So it's I think a 5-year pilot, so stay tuned. We're hoping to roll that out across the state.
Many thanks, Vicky, and thank you, Gary. I'm going to take this opportunity. We're halfway through the meeting, and we're going to take a 10-minute break. Give folks time to freshen up, and we'll be back here in 10 minutes, and we'll continue with the committee reports.
Nice to meet you. Firstly.
Yeah.
Nice to hear your name. Next slide, Josie. Next slide, Josie.
And
My name is Nate.
I just wanted to double check.
You know me?
I do believe. So you're all set?
I am. I'm going to call in for the rest of the meeting.
Okay. If you
I have the
have
link.
any issues, let me know. You
Okay.
should get in.
Okay.
Are you going to use like the WebEx, the link?
Yeah, the one you emailed just the other day.
Yes. Okay. On your phone?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you shouldn't have any issues getting in.
Okay, sounds good.
May I take information? Of course. What are your name? What are your title? What are your job?
My name is Paul Johnson. I'm the executive director of provider agency.
My name
Yeah, okay.
Hi, everyone. This is Josie from OPWDD. I wanted to let you know we're going to be gathering and starting up in just a moment.
Stuart, you're up after the break. We've all got phones.
Hmm?
Watch us at all times.
No, I told him, yeah, that'd be great, like, still want to be represented. Well, now they're better here, so.
Okay, if everybody can get themselves together, we're going to start again. And we'll begin with the report from the Self-Direction Committee. And Stuart Flam, Stuart's in New York City. Stuart, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, then over to you.
All right, so the Self-Direction Committee is up and we are going to get going. I have to tell you that our membership is primarily outside specialists, as you can see by the number of stars on our committee membership. But I have to tell you that our membership is crafted with the folks at Self-Direction at OPW and with input from Nick Capoletti, whom you all know, as well as from myself. And we really have a committee that, perhaps unlike previous committees, we are definitely representative of the entire state. We are representative of different provider agencies, parents, self-advocates, FIs, and support brokers. So when we now meet in our new committee, we really are talking about being very, very, very vertical. And I think that makes a very big difference in how we have discussions. So when we talk about anything, it's going to be from the perspective of all of the folks who are on the committee. Most importantly, we have a very large proportion of self-advocates. So we're going to go to the next screen. And with our over 200 years of experience of our various members, we feel very confident that when we talk about recommendations or we talk about our advisory role, that we really are addressing the perspective of most people, if not all, who are either self-directed or who desire to be self-directed but haven't been identified yet. So in our three categories, we're going to talk about recommendations under consideration. I'm going to be very honest and tell you that our committee was very concerned that in the RFP for the self-direction assessment, that we were not included as an advisory group to be able to work in any capacity with whoever will be the awardee. And in the 507 plan, it was mentioned that there would be some sort of connectivity between that RFP and working with the self-direction committee. And we don't see that in the RFP. So we would like to ask that there be some language or some commitment that we are also included. The second bullet point is that we want to know that that self-direction is a commitment by OPW, and that we want them to assure stakeholders. We request that OPW address the institutional bias embedded in the current complex self-direction structure. And in that regard, we're really talking about the complexity in working with FIs, working with support brokers, with FIs or support brokers getting clear information and being able to get directives from OPW so that they can better serve those who are their stakeholders. We also would like to see that OPW look at various ways to address dissatisfaction with self-direction. Most people who are self-directed tend to pick up a bow and arrow and point it at somebody, and it really doesn't do anything to solve where people are having frustration. People are asking for support, for some help. They come to some of the stakeholder meetings, but those are really just for stating your ideas and not so much for a dialogue. We are excited that we have a very strong separate work group that has been created, and this has been in conversation. This has been something that we've talked about extensively with the Office of Strategic Initiative, and that is to get a better handle on the self-advocates around the state, to market to them and have them identify strengths, weaknesses, concerns regarding their relationship with OPW, CCOs, FIs, care managers, support brokers, parents, and providers. We think this is a huge opportunity, and we are really thankful for the perspective that the OSI group shared with us, because it gives us a chance to look at a very neglected group of people who desire to be self-advocates, as well as those who are up-and-coming self-advocates and those who have been left behind because they don't understand advocacy. But we think it's really important from all of our professional perspectives on the committee to be able to get their input so that we can better inform OPW. Some of our key concerns are not new, but we are concerned about the inconsistent interpretation of policies. It's well known in the self-direction community that ADMs come through, but FIs, support brokers, and those who are self-directed have a very difficult time interpreting the policies and making sure that their needs are being met and their goals. OPW is also, we feel, not addressing what will happen when caregivers are either not available or pass away. And we think this has been a very neglected topic, which is very, very instrumental in preventing many people from thinking about self-direction when it's a wonderful option. And we think that there has to be a discussion around what happens when caregivers die. OPW, we also are concerned, is looking outside New York State through the ARPA, I'm sorry, not through the ARPA, but through the RFP to study to see what other states are doing, yet all the other states, for many of us who are on the NCAPS groups, state that New York is so much farther ahead than they are. So we're wondering why we're looking outward when we can look inward and improve what we have. And that's our presentation.
Thank you, Stuart. First of all, let's start with any questions or comments from New York City.
None here in New York, John.
Any questions or comments from Buffalo?
Just a comment. I'm just learning a lot about self-direction of late, and what I'm understanding is that very often the process is for individuals of means because it's a reimbursement from some of the self-direction budget. So if you don't have the money, if the self-advocate or the individual family doesn't have the money to put out, then the person can't get the service or the activity. And I just think that needs to be examined because you know, it's really discriminating against people that don't have the financial resources to front the money.
Am I to address that? Yeah, that's a very good point, and that was one of the goals in having a very diverse committee, was to be able to have people who work with, and are familiar with people who don't have means. There are ways to be creative with self-direction to move the money. So there are providers who will accept payment. It requires a little bit of marketing to those providers, and many families aren't comfortable in that role. But certainly a support broker can call on a provider and tell them the benefit of working with someone who is self-directed, and the knowledge of, you know, what the terms are as to when they'll get compensated. So I think that there are some problems there, but I think that some of it can be addressed. But
I'm simply mentioning it, not that you have to respond or have an answer about it, but that the committee should consider that as you go forward, just to make it accessible for all. That's all. I know we can't solve it today, but it's something that should be looked at.
Yes, I absolutely agree, and I do feel a need to reply, and it is part of our notes in our meetings that we do talk about accessibility for all.
Excellent, thank you.
Anything else from Buffalo?
No.
Okay, that also goes to your earlier point about the diversity, equity, and inclusion. To be aware of this. And we have a question here in Albany from Jeffrey.
Hi. In the second recommendation, totally understand what you mean by the system being complex. Can you say a little bit more about what's meant by institutional bias being embedded in the system?
So it would be coming from perhaps care management organizations, or primarily from care management organizations, perhaps from schools. People who may have high complex needs are not considered for self-direction for various reasons, because folks feel that they can't live independently. And also there are folks who are in group homes who want to access self-directed services, and there's a bias that makes things more complicated, because there's payroll at the agency, and then there's figuring out how to craft a self-directed budget for someone to do something else during the daytime than whatever the house is doing or the activity at the house.
Any other questions or comments from Albany? Stuart, any final words?
Yeah, Jeffrey, I would say that there's also a bias by people who are self-directed as well. So when I use the word institutional bias, we traditionally look at the traditional system of how supports and services are delivered. But for those who are self-directed, there's a bias that they have as well, which is they really want to maintain that. So I think there's a happy point in the middle. But I think right now, I think there's, from our meetings, our committee, we think that there's an imbalance more towards the traditional institution. Because if you just look at our committee structure, I don't have anything to do with government appointees, but we have a committee that's primarily composed of outside subject experts. And so that concerns me, that we don't have more people on the committee who are interested in self-direction.
Thanks for addressing that.
Hey, thank you, Stuart. Shanika, is Shanika on?
I am.
Hi, Shanika. Shanika Andrews to talk about Employment and Meaningful Activities Committee, and you've got the slide up there. There you go.
Okay, so membership in our committee has been a struggle for a while, but I think we have a good group. Some new members have recently joined. I know Jeffrey is going to be joining us as well. We've had Mary Beth Schneider, who is part of Our Ability, who's recently joined us. So we think that those are some great, and Leah as well, some great additions to our committee. So we think we're really in a good place as far as membership and looking at how we're structuring meetings. So you can see our current membership on the screen. You can go to the next slide. I'm sorry?
I just asked Josie to move to the next slide, sorry.
Oh, okay. So a lot of our recommendations are around data collection, looking at, where are people employed, how, how are they employed, what are they making, what is their satisfaction with that employment. Also looking at the meaningful activities part of that. How is OPW defining meaningful activities, and what are the meaningful activities that people are engaged in, and what is their satisfaction with those activities. We believe that these things should be included in the life plan. Satisfaction with these things should be in the life plan, and should be clear data about where people are, and so we can look at that as a group. We also think it's important to increase partnerships with other employment organizations and businesses to increase opportunities for people with disabilities. Like, I mentioned Our Ability, who is doing a lot of things around supporting people with disabilities in the employment area, like the ILCs that are providing knowledge on, benefits and things like that. I also know that OPW has the revenue support department, or I don't know what you want to call it, but that deals with this. I think a lot of people don't even know about that, and I think benefits, we think, benefits continues to be a barrier, or knowledge of benefits to people's employment, and especially in the areas of people that are supposed to be supporting people, like case managers. Case managers don't always have a knowledge of, these different programs that can help people make more and have more opportunities in the areas of employment. So those are, some really key recommendations that we think should be looked at as far as creating opportunities. Some other things that we are discussing as a group, like I said, it's a lot around data and maintaining data, reviewing data that OPW may have, and encouraging more data collection. And also how we can align ourselves with the, OPWDD's employment goals. A lot of our concerns, again, are around data, around communication. We've had a lot of issues around, trying to, get information from OPW and the people that are in charge of employment. So really looking at how to rectify that. I know Jessica was one of the people that came to our last meeting, and it has been offering to facilitate and help with that. So we appreciate that. Also looking at the lack of opportunities for people with disabilities within the OPWDD system, as we know, there's lots of issues with staffing and people being able to get transportation so they are able to work and things like that. Also, lastly, I'll look at this, is people that are in pre-voc programs, there doesn't seem to be a lot of transition to employment. You have many people that are in these types of programs for a very long time, and they don't seem to have any, people working with them to look at other possibilities beyond these programs. So that's a quick and short and sweet and whatever. Anybody wants to chime in or has questions or anything like that. If anybody that's on the committee thinks I missed anything that you think is important to say, can do that.
Thank you, Shamika, and we'll start with Albany. Randy?
Just one comment in terms of increasing people's knowledge on the work incentives and benefits. I would encourage people to reach out to the area's disability resource coordinator, who could probably help a lot with that.
Okay, thank you for that suggestion.
Anything else in Albany? Okay, we'll go to Buffalo. Any questions or comments from Buffalo?
No, thank you.
And to New York City, any questions or comments from New York City?
Questions or comments?
Okay, this is Jerry. Shamika did a wonderful job, and we really have a very good group for the Employment and Meaningful Activities Committee. I would just like to reiterate that individuals should be able to have an opportunity to either go to a program, become an artist, have a job, or go to a day program or go to school. I mean, these things, and we don't have any statistics as to what people are doing now, other than agencies that have a day program. It's very difficult to find out what people are doing. But the other thing is, people that want jobs, there isn't a actual job development place or they keep saying go to your local Department of Labor, but there are no actual people out there who are finding positions for our individuals, who are creating opportunities for our individuals to actually work. So that is something that we've been looking at, because people go to pre-voc and then they get dropped off. That's it. You did pre-voc and now go back. You have nothing left for you. So that's a big thing. And the final thing was the transportation issue. You can't have somebody get a job. You can't have somebody who wants to work or wants to go to school or wants to do something when they can't get there. So that's the big problem.
That's what I'm.
We have to be able to get people to where they want to go, especially on Long Island, but everywhere.
That's what I'm.
Buffalo, I see.
Thanks, Jerry. Jeff has a comment.
Yeah, this is just a comment. I'm going to be joining this group, so I can bring this up at the committee meetings as well. But among the network of voluntary providers, there's a wide degree to which those providers are engaging the community. And we find that through community engagement, it's at those community breakfast events or those networking events that you connect with a new partner, a new business, a new government office. And a lot of our job opportunities come through those relationships as opposed to. So, a toolbox or roadmap, for organizations who aren't currently out there engaging the community about how to do that might be helpful.
Thanks, Jeff. And if I may add a comment, we have independent living centers in most large areas of the state and in most counties. Some of the counties share an independent living center, but in most independent living centers, they are funded to provide advice on work incentive programs and benefits advising. Great resource that we should also be accessing. Any other questions or comments for Shamika? Thanks very much, Shamika. And our last committee is the Systems Quality, Data and Service Delivery Committee. And unfortunately, the chair, Dolores McFadden, couldn't be with us today. But I know that there are a couple of members of the council who are members of that committee. And so I'm going to ask in New York City first, Donna, if there's anything that you can weigh in about the activities of the committee. Okay, you guys there in New York City?
I'm sorry, I was on mute.
That's my fault.
Me, probably good reason, but okay. So the committee has been pretty active over the last 3 years, and we're recently less so only trying to define like our role in the context of all the new committees and sort of the reboot of the DDIC around committees and making them relevant. So we spent a fair amount of time responding to the 507 plan, which I think was appropriate for that committee. And also just to sort of, I think the direction in some ways is trying to help support, knit together all these various activities in terms of access, easy access, front door. We responded obviously to the front door. There needs to be a systems response to every one of the pieces that have been addressed actually, whether it's health, it's self-direction, it's housing. And so if you don't have a system that knits it all together and makes access easy, then you aren't really building an overarching system of services. And we spent a lot of time really discussing what our role could be in terms of contributing to those type of recommendations. And I think so. With Dolores not being here, and I know there hasn't been a meeting recently, I think the plan is to reboot with some new members to really, now that we feel we have, quote unquote, some direction from the larger DDAC or DDAC is, what are we calling DDAC? Or
Yeah, we still call it.
No, I still call it DDAC. So that's kind of, and I'm sure I'm not doing as good a job as some of the other members, and certainly Dolores could do.
Thank you very much, Donna, and sorry for putting you on the spot.
That's okay.
I hope you'll forgive me. I know that Jerry, you're on the committee as well. Anything to add to what Donna said?
Yes, actually, the systems committee is, we need to have the data to actualize the life of the person and what they envision. So without understanding, without having this data collected, it becomes very difficult to manage all the systems, to understand what options there are or what's available. Or the systems committee spent a very long time analyzing the 507, and that was submitted. And that's basically what we did for quite a long time. So all of that was submitted to OPWDD, and I don't know if Dolores, I'm off the grid for that, whether Dolores got feedback from OPWDD from everything that we sent, or I don't know what happened after that. But I know we spent a lot of time and a lot of work on submitting the information regarding the 507.
Yeah, and Jerry, I think part of the evolution of this committee, as Donna said, and Dolores can much better articulate this, is to really be looking at, defining what its scope is, aligning with some of the work that we're doing with OPWDD and the 507 plan, looking at metrics, looking at data. So I think there's some work to be done over the next couple months in repurposing and envisioning how this committee adds to this conversation.
Right. We want to, be able to measure quality. And in order to measure the quality of someone's life, then we need to have the data, and that data has to be collected. So in some way, OPWDD has to be able to collect the information so that at least the committee can see it, digest it, and then assist OPWDD in, whatever direction we need to go.
Thanks, Jerry. Any comments or questions for the members of the committee? Well, thank you to all the committee chairs and to all the committee members. I push it back to you, Nick.
Sure, John, thank you. So we intentionally added a section here on the agenda for open discussion, both in response to what has been presented on the committees, but then also any topics that members want to discuss as a result of those presentations. So we'll open it up for some conversation.
I just have one question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And this may be for OPWDD, because I think that, some of the discussions really talk, we need to have some conversations how we can incentivize some of the, I'm going to use the word innovation, even though I sometimes don't know what it means anymore. But how do we align sort of incentives with some of the things, whether it's housing policy or work or all self-direction. My one question around the federal issue, the debt ceiling issue that took off the table all of the unspent money, does that impact OPWDD in any way? In terms of some money that might have flowed to OPWDD for some of these initiatives?
Hi, this is Eileen Hayes. I'm not aware of that, and I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Nick?
We were just having a sidebar, and I think it's on maybe Kevin's radar, so we can look back and.
Is that too many people talking at once? Or-
I don't know if you heard Allison, but this is an issue that we're looking at OPWDD, and we'll look back if we have further information.
Okay.
Nick,
Yes.
this is Stephanie. I'm a self-advocate. I'm the chairperson of Transportation Committee. Right now, I got $750,000 last April for them to do a study here. The study, I went to meet with the stockbrokers on May 22nd. And so far the study has started to see how much it's gonna cost for paratransit to be, because my bill is good for the whole entire state and 62 counties. If my bill passes, they're gonna name the bill after me, and the bill is going to be 3 miles, paratransit will be going.
Wow, that's wonderful. Congrats.
Bravo, Stephanie.
That's awesome.
She's been working on it for years, and so.
9 years.
Yep, 9 years.
Wonderful.
And I'm gonna dovetail off of Stephanie's comment, to commend her for her perseverance. And also say that, we have to do more than studies. And so many of us have been involved in this for a lifetime, but we need to get specific on actions and results and measurement. So that's just my advertisement and my level of frustration. Nick, you know that well with me, right? Let's get some things done and then evaluate them to see what we did well, what we didn't do so well, improve on what we didn't do so well, and replicate what we're doing well, and get some stuff done, because some of these subjects we've been talking about for a lot of years. I'm fairly new to the DDAC, but enjoying during COVID. But it's just our families and our individuals who receive services are waiting. And I think we just need to be more aggressive about getting things accomplished, listening to what they have to say, and then getting things done.
And I'm going to piggyback, since we're in Buffalo and I'm sitting across from Barb. I completely agree with what Barb just said. A lot of these issues, we know what the issues are. We know that they're very complex. Studies are fine, but they don't address the issue in the immediate needs that we need to look at. So, the last meeting we talked about creating a workforce, a committee that really looked at the recruitment and retention issues. And we know recruitment is one piece of it, but I'm just wondering, you know, whether OPWDD is collecting information about retention, either on their own state side or with the voluntary providers. Because, you know, the Office of the State Controller issued a workforce report a couple of weeks ago, and they reported that there's a 26% attrition rate. That's not retirements, that's people quitting. And it's not only OPW, but I do know we've gotten out of the habit of routinely doing exit interviews. I do know that there have been employee surveys, but we haven't seen the results of those. And I'm wondering if the DDEC, if OPW can provide some of that information that can give us insight into why we are experiencing such high turnover when historically, you know, people came into this field and they were dedicated, committed, and they stayed. And we know some of the reasons, and COVID magnified them. But some of them, I think, we really need to examine more closely, and I'd like to see a concerted effort there.
Hi, this is Allison from Strategic Initiatives. Allison Pingaskilsky, who was here, is doing a lot of thinking on this front and has efforts underway, and she referred to her new director of workforce. They're looking at the data and looking at developing and enriching their data systems. So this is certainly an area they're focused on. I do believe we do have currently exit interviews of DSPs and supervisors. So I think your point is an excellent one and we appreciate it. And I know that they're also having these discussions on the voluntary side as well. A little bit more challenging there, but through the work that she mentioned, they're working and evaluating and working with our evaluator, University of Minnesota, who's been funded through an ARPA grant to really integrate that into the evaluation and make sure we have data as we move forward to communicate and share so we all can advocate for what we know is right in terms of increased wages and supporting the DSP workforce.
I'll just respond. I appreciate that you're working with the University of Minnesota, but we need to really share that data with the people that are actually on the front lines and understand the systems they work in and have intimate knowledge of what works, what doesn't, and why they're so frustrated. So anything that you put together, it would be helpful to actually see.
Absolutely agree. And we do have, you know, questions in the NCI data set that we've also been reviewing, and our plan and goal is to share data. We're also discussing internally our data community of practice, which we hope will be very much connected to this committee structure, and we're excited to be moving and making progress there in that discussion and engage in a conversation about the focus of that data community of practice. So thanks for your comments. We appreciate them.
Michael Seaward has a comment in Albany.
Thanks, John. Piggybacking on Randy's point in this discussion, generally about workforce, I think this is also a reflection of the system more broadly. I think we do know what works. We do know what matters in the system. That's investing in DSPs, that's investing in the supervisory staff of DSPs. That's, by the way, one of the reasons I'm really concerned about that access rule at the federal level. Does not include investments in frontline supervisors. But my point is that I think there's a cultural issue going on in our system, one in which we continue to struggle with an increasingly highly regulated process and a highly regulated system that has taken, you know, compliance-based approaches to assuring quality to a new level. And I think that has removed the ability of DSPs and frontline supervisors to have any degree of autonomy in the job that they do of providing supports and services to people with disabilities with the lives that they want to live. And I think that's a cultural issue we have to struggle with, and we have to wrestle with to try to get us beyond checking the box, as I like to say, checking the temperature of the refrigerator and checking how many fire drills have we done this year, into a system that celebrates the capacities of direct support professionals and their supervisory chains to best support the people that they know really well. And that comes back down, quite frankly, to fundamentals to me. A really person-centered system, a system that really and truly honors dignity of risk and honors choice and creates as much maximum choice in the lives of people that they support as possible. I think that's an issue that the system needs to struggle with, and I see that as a huge barrier to the success of our system long-term unless we start to shift that culture away from the compliance base to something that's more outcome-oriented.
Thank you, Michael. I would add to what you just said, that trying to measure quality in 15-minute increments is a joke. We should just drop that as soon as we possibly can. Any questions, comments, additional material from any of the council members?
Donna?
I have one question, John, where's the discussion to be had around adaptive technologies and sort of aggressive technology? That kind of something Michael said made me think about sort of the restrictive dignity of risk issues, and there's a lot new technology, AI included, I guess, that could potentially support people to be more independent, because we'd have to make sure the system allowed that. And to get back to the dignity of risk question, but there is a modern world out there, and not to say that providers and individuals aren't accessing some of that already, but as a system, should we be discussing that and promoting that type of future? Because it could support people to be more independent. At the same time, with all the staffing crises and issues, this could be maybe a partial solution to where we sometimes have too much staff and not enough independence because of all the regulatory environments. So I guess the question really is, where does that sit, or should it sit somewhere in the DDAC committee structures?
If I could, I believe, Alison, not to put you on the spot, but there is going to be language in the next waiver revision that will directly look at assistive technology and enabling technology.
Yeah, it's too bad Kate had to jump to another meeting, but she is very excited about this initiative. We do have in our waiver amendment included language to really allow for a more functional process that empowers agencies to directly purchase enabling technology when it's under a certain amount. There's a lot of consideration. I do agree with the comment that we need to look at the DDAC committee structure and think about where it fits here. I don't know, Nick, John, if we had that discussion, but I think it does belong in our conversation somewhere, so we can take that back, have a conversation and really try to specify specifically where we think that fits. But a lot of good work. It was an ARPA grant, or is an ARPA grant. Kate has received a great recommendation from our vendor, and as noted, it's integrated into the waiver amendment, and she's identified both short-term and long-term, solutions and opportunities for really growing and developing capacity to use technology, in homes as well as in the community to I think address exactly what you're saying, Donna. So great point. Thank you so much for bringing it up.
Yeah, and Allison, we could certainly have that conversation in the executive committee as to what committees should be looking at that. But I think, to Donna's point also, we do need to look at the dignity of risk, because again, we could identify some leading edge technologies that can help independence, but if we're not willing to accept the potential risks associated with those, if we've got levels of supervision or regulation or compliance that interfere with the use of that technology, we have to reconcile that as well. And I run into that a little bit with self-direction, and so.
It's Jerry again.
Hi, Jerry again.
I'm going to go backwards now again to transportation, because no matter what you give an individual here on Long Island, you can only stay in Suffolk County because your transportation will not take you over to the next county. So whatever we do with individuals, if they can't get there, then we're failing. If you say to an individual, yes, we're going to give you all the technology, we're going to set you up in an educational program, and the transportation doesn't cross that county line, and they have to sit in the rain waiting for another bus to come so that they can get there an hour late, then it's all for naught. We really need to establish ground coverage now for individuals. I mean, we talk about wonderful opportunities. We need to have the data, and we also need to. We can't build a building on pebbles. We have to start from the bottom and say, well, we need to establish transportation. We need to establish individuals to have the services that they want. We need to have protective mechanisms there so that they are safe in doing what they want. I mean, it's a whole level, and sometimes I think we miss a few when we're, for individuals. But that's my last comment. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Jerry. Other comments, discussion?
Just as a reminder, Nick, this is open to the general public as well, right?
No, not until we start that section.
Sorry.
It's okay. But if we have nothing to add, we will start that. Any other points? OPWDD, Eileen, your team? Any further thoughts, conversation, questions?
I think we're good, Nick. Thanks.
Okay, great. All right, well, John, that was a good segue. We're going to open it up now to public comment. So I think we'll do each location. We'll start with Albany. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment?
Nope.
No. Okay. Well, let's go to Buffalo. Do we have any members of the public or present in Buffalo who would like to comment? Barb, Randy, is there anybody there? Okay, I'm going to take that silence as a no. New York City, would you like to make comment? If you could just identify yourself.
I'd like to make comment. My name is Sarah Nelson, and I work for Lifetime Health Service. I support individuals in the community as well. And one of the comments I wanted to elaborate on a little bit is about the high turnover for DSPs. One of the issues I know was COVID, definitely. But another one of the issues I want to definitely say is the pay. The pay rate is a big issue. It's one of the main reasons why we don't even have as many DSPs as we really want to. Because if you go where I'm from, I'm in the Bronx, but our agency is actually located in Mount Vernon. If you take a walk down the block, you can get a job at Target for $22.50 an hour. And it's unfortunate, but because of the quality of life, of course, and the increase in how things are going in this world now, the cost of living is so high. If you're working within an agency with someone for many years and you're not making as much as $22 an hour, it can be something that will cause you to make a shift in your whole your job. So that's something that I know we are struggling with. Whatever incentives that can, and retention can be brought up to increase that level of pay is going to be something that we're going to benefit from for the families, for agencies, and for us as a whole, because unfortunately, this is not going to go away. We're going to have to serve people within the population for human services for the rest of my life and the life of my grandchildren, I'm sure. But so we have to figure out a way to have a common balance so that we can provide service and allow people also to enjoy what they do and also have a good quality of life doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I think that ends public comment for at least the 3 sites. So with that, any other new business any members would like to bring up? Any suggestions for next committee meeting?
Nick,
or next council meeting?
this is
Yes.
Shamika. I
Hi,
can
Shamika.
figure out how to raise my hand, but um, one of the things that came up in a previous meeting that I was in earlier is the fact that the anniversary for the ADA is coming up. So people were asking if, I don't know if there's people from OPW still on, if OPW was planning anything for that, or if any other agencies or things know anything about that. And people can reach out to me separately if we don't want to take time to talk about that right now, but I just wanted to throw that out there because I said that I would ask. So.
Okay. Eileen, does anyone on your team know, is there any specific activities planned by OPWDD for the celebration of the ADA?
Yeah, this is Rachel. I mean, we have some early plans, but Shamika, we can follow up with you. My communications team is in here and there are the points for that. So we'll follow up.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Well, with no other comments, thank you all again for attending this meeting, and certainly all those members who made an effort to come to the site so that we could get our bylaws and the video resolution passed. That gives us a lot of flexibility moving forward that I think will benefit members in getting access to these meetings. So I want to thank the OPWDD team, Eileen, and you and your team for hosting us today, and thank all the members for joining us. And Josie, our next meeting is scheduled for when?
Next meeting is scheduled for September the 26th.
There you go. Thanks, John. September 26th. Please note it on your calendars. And with that, we'll bring this meeting to an end. Thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.